Again, good morning, everyone. I just want to open in prayer again. Father, thank you so much, Lord, for the word gone forth, Lord. You expressed your hope, the hope that you have expressed a hope that we are to cling to through what you said here, Lord. And I'm thankful that you don't allow us to forget. Father, thank you so much, Lord, for leading Shelley and the songs that she sung. Just brings so much encouragement to me, as your word does. So, Lord, I pray that you would help me, Lord, to stand here confidently and not to waver, but to stop my mouth when I need to stop my mouth, not to say something I shouldn't be saying, Lord, but that I convey your heart to your people. In Jesus' name, amen. Something that I just, I always pray that God would orchestrate everything. I always do for whoever stands here, and for myself, of course. What an awesome, heartfelt song here. This little, all of it is, but this portion right here where Shelley was leading his worship unto the Lord, it says, "O Lord, please light the fire
Amen.
that once burned bright and clean. Replace the lamp of my first love that burns with holy fear." That goes in, it really does, it seems like it really goes in line with what my heart, I'm trying to convey in this message. So I just, that really touched me. Thank you, Shelley. And how God used that and how you were obedient.
Amen.
I want to start off with one thing to remember. A nation can only stay sovereign if its God is the Lord.
Amen.
Remember that, because the uniqueness of our nation, I'm not going to try to rehash things. This is something I can't shake. I was like wondering, I was praying about last night for this morning, and I just, it's just, when you stand here, it's such a huge responsibility, and it's such an honor, and it's something that should tremble a person, and it does. So a nation can only stay sovereign if its God is the Lord. Another thing that we need to remember, I'm not going to go into it, a house divided cannot stand.
Amen.
So a nation that is sovereign is united because it's under God. But a house divided cannot stand because there's factions within the nation, and they don't agree in the unity of God and how it was founded. And again, please bear with me. The title, I believe, is "The Sovereignty of a Nation. Why should it matter to America?" The sovereignty of a nation. Why should it matter to America? I'm going to go to Psalm 33:12. "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people whom he has chosen for his own inheritance." Again, blessed is the nation. God's word says, blessed is the nation. Any nation. But we're unique in a sense.
33:12.
33:12. "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people of whom he has chosen for his own inheritance." We should be truly overwhelmed with emotion when we read that blessed is the nation. So blessed is the nation that God allows to know him.
Amen.
Blessed is the nation that God allows us to know him. The United States is a sovereign nation. And just bear with me, my teachings kind of go in a circle, so just bear with me. The United States is a sovereign nation, which means it is an independent nation, allowed to be governed by its own people. So I want you to follow along. It's governed by its own people, a country that governs its own affairs, again, by the will of God. So the uniqueness of our government is that its people govern. It sends representatives to Congress. It elects officials, which is unique. I'm going to go back to history a little bit. We have the privilege to elect our own representatives, and as a nation, we make our own laws. So we appoint, of course, I'm not going to give you like a little history or government teaching or anything like that, but we appoint officials or people to go into Congress and so forth, the legislature, to draw up laws that we as people have allowed. A good meaning of a sovereign nation is, and this is a good meaning of it, the supreme and absolute and uncontrollable power by which a country is governed and from which all specific political powers are derived. So the supreme, absolute, uncontrolled power by which a country is governed and from which all specific political powers are derived, the intentional independence of a country combined with the power of regulating its eternal affairs, its own eternal affairs. So a sovereign nation is a nation that regulates and governs itself by the people without foreign interference. So I want you to understand that. So we're a sovereign nation. We govern. We have been blessed with a unique form of government. When our independence was declared in 1776, our declaration has these words written in it, and it reads, "When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another." So this is going back to the Declaration of Independence. So the proclamation that is being said, when in course of human events if it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, which is England, and to assume among the powers of the earth. So as being a sovereign nation, you're declaring your independence, and now you're assuming the powers that are on earth as being a government. Now you're making a proclamation that you, as a country, are become sovereign, and you demand the rights of being a sovereign nation. The separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitled them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which imperil them to the separation. And I'm going to go back to about what the laws of nature and of nature's God. I want you to understand what that means. Notice it's in the order that it is. So it says the laws of nature and of nature's God. So you can go here. This is God. God's creation is nature, or a word for it, but it's God's creation, and it has laws. Amen. That comes from God, and that is a representation of the proof that God exists and that He is sovereign. Amen. He's sovereign over all nations. Mm-hmm. So I want you to understand the order of what the founding fathers used. They're saying the laws. I want you to, because the atheists and people who do not desire to know God will use this and say, oh, there's a separation, that they didn't even know what they were talking about. The laws of nature and of nature's God. So there's how they worded things in those days is just beautiful, because it causes you to really think about what they were saying. It really does. So notice it's in the order that it is. So in 1841, John Quincy Adams, who was president, became president. He was the son of John Adams. He said that the Declaration of Independence reference to the laws of nature and nature's God go hand in hand. They are the foundation of absolute truth. The laws of God that govern creation govern us. So the laws of nature are gravity and things like that that God set in motion and God set in order. So those are things that prove to us that God is sovereign. God is sovereign, and he's sovereign over all nations, and he allows the sovereignty of a nation to prosper. So they are the foundation of absolute truth, the laws of God that govern men and govern its creation. For more, I hope, more clarity, I'm going to say, by America, so I'm going to say this I'm hoping that will be more clear. By America declaring its sovereignty, it became a separate nation, no longer under the authority of a king. It claims the right of the existing nations. Some of the rights claimed, if necessary, and these are the rights that a nation has, and it's declaring it unto itself. Some of the rights that are claimed is, if necessary, is the power to go to war. That's what's the sovereignty of a nation. Has the right to go to war, to make peace, to establish treaties, establish commerce, etc. So I'm just giving you a description of what a sovereign nation is, because not all nations are sovereign. At the time of the independence, most of the nations of the world were monarchies, ruled by kings and queens. What God gave us was much different. The United States is legitimately sovereign, not because of a monarch's decree. So it's not a king or a queen that dictates to a people, makes this nation sovereign. Not because of that, but by the will of God that it was established. So I want you to understand that what I'm getting at, we really need to process our history that God has given us. By the will of God, the people rule. Because that was different. It was different throughout history. When the founding fathers drew up the Declaration of Independence, monarchies ruled the land. That's all there was. It was kings and queens. Throughout Europe, you had what do you want to call them in Asia? It was all ruled by supreme authority, and that was it, not by the people. We were given a form of government that's unique throughout all history. Even the Roman Empire was governed by Caesar. It had a legislature and stuff, but it did not have the full grasp of what God's designing, that God gave us as a country. So I'm trying to express to you the appreciation that we truly should have as being a sovereign nation, that God allows it to be, because He's sovereign above us. I mentioned that before. It's like us as a nation, we're looked upon throughout the world as being powerful. We're looked at as a superpower. But it should not take us to a place of arrogance and unbridled power. And I think what President Eisenhower, who, like I've shared in another teaching, is that he was the one who led millions of soldiers into battle, who knew what it was to lead men, who knew what it was to hold on to power, to be able to move armies, this and this, at his whim. But when he became president, he humbled himself. He basically took the knee to God, which means that he acknowledged that God is sovereign over the nation that calls itself sovereign. The only way the nation is sovereign is that God allows it. I want you to understand that. That's the only reason. So we got to hold on and understand, hold fast to the sovereignty of our nation. Abraham Lincoln, and I want you to hear this because this is very powerful. It's the Gettysburg Address, and it's the heart of Lincoln and how he was witnessing the trauma of war, of our nation being divided. 67 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any other nation so conceived or so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field, which is Gettysburg, as a final resting place for those who gave their lives that the nation might live, that the nation would continue to be sovereign, holding to no one but to God. It is altogether fittingly and proper that we should do this, Lincoln said. But in a large sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or to detract. He's acknowledging the dead who sacrificed their lives for a sovereign nation that God had given them. The world, Lincoln said, the world will little note, so it will not remember what I'm saying right now. But did he know that we would? Nor long remember what we will say here. But it can never be forgot that they did what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion unto a sovereign nation at the time that was dedicated to God. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, Lincoln said, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. So he's saying that this nation that is under God, submissive unto the sovereignty of God, shall not perish from the face of earth, from the earth, as long as that nation stays sovereign to God. It's sovereign itself because God has allowed that to happen, that it governs its own self. A moral people can only do this. A moral people can govern itself. I want you to understand that only a moral people. The purpose of government is to secure the people's rights. Some of those rights given by God. Our government derives its just powers from the consent of the governed. This means America's sovereignty is justified by God himself, the God-given right of self-government, the right to live your life as a free man, as a moral people, freedom through Christ, that truly sets a man free from the bondage of sin. That is what Adams said, that only moral people can sustain a republic. Benjamin Franklin said, you've been given a republic if you can keep it. A set of ideals. These are a set of ideals. I love movies. I love wholesome, moral, God-fearing movies that have a lot of American history in it. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Has anybody seen the movie? Mr. Smith and Gone to Washington. Have you seen it? Has anybody else? Oh.
You've seen it, right?
So there's a scene. Mr. Smith is he's just a genuine, right? He's genuine. He just loves people and he loves the nation. He loves what it stands for. There's a scene in it where he goes, building up to this, and I'm not going to dwell on this too much. So he's basically appointed senator because the senator that was elected died. So basically his state wanted to get somebody into office that would just be a puppet. Just do whatever they say. Just vote here, vote here, vote here. And he's all excited. He's like, man, I'm like a patriot. And it's like, I'm going to go to Washington. I'm going to do all the right things. I swear, honest, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to dishonor what I've been given. So he goes there and his eyes open up and he just starts to see a lot of evil. They come after him because he doesn't want. He finds out that there's corruption in his own state. Long story short, so he exposes it, or he finds out and he starts to expose it. Well, the government comes after him, and they're out to destroy him, his integrity as a man, which he is genuine, and everything that he stands for, and all his beliefs, And so now now I'm going to take you to a scene where he basically is being indicted with false claims. And he walks out, and they're out looking for him, and he's just like, and where does he go? It's late at night, the scene is, and he's at the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And he's just looking around, and you got to look at him. This is a thank you, Jimmy Stewart. You got a picture, young Jimmy Stewart, and he's just like, and he's there, just standing there, and he's looking at Lincoln, and he's looking at everything that he said. And he doesn't say a word. And he's broken. He's broken. And he walks off, and he's in between the pillars, and he breaks down. He's broken. Everything that he believed in, he believes as though it was all of a fallacy. It was all a lie. He has lost hope. He's like, it's all a lie. He's packing it in. He's got his luggage, and he's going, I'm gone. So his friend comes up, who they fall in love later. And she used to mock him because of his beliefs. She's like, who are you, like Daniel Boone and stuff like that? He called him all kinds of names and stuff like that. It's like, you don't belong here and stuff like that. Go back to your prairie and stuff like that. And, go back to Mayberry or whatever. That's not in the movie. But go back to your simple way of life. You don't belong here. You're too good. You have a good heart. She sees the brokenness that he has. So the scene is where she finds him because she's looking for him. And she goes, don't stop believing. I'm starting to believe what you believe. Amen. Don't fight for it. Fight for what you believe. Amen. Don't believe the lie. Don't believe the deception. Amen. You know what's true. God has placed it within your heart, basically. And he's like, he's like listening and stuff like that, but I'm not going to go into it too much, but he has new breath. He has something that's re-energized him, and it's like, God has allowed him to believe again. And the last scene is that he walks from the pillars, and he walks and he sees the Lincoln again, and he turns to him and he goes, and then they go down the stairs. And it's like, now they get a fight, and they actually fight in the Senate. And he does a filibuster, long story short. So you got to see the movie. But there's such a principled teaching there. Do not give up in something that you know it's true. You've seen it. You've witnessed it. You've heard it. You've read it. Another scene is from Sergeant York, where the colonel tells Sergeant York, who's not a sergeant at the time because he hasn't been promoted. So long story short, again, York doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to kill because he believes in God. He says, thou shalt not kill. But then the colonel challenges him and says, you want to preserve your life. You want to live your life the way you want to. You want to raise your children as you see fit. You want to grow your farm and grow your crops. That's a heritage. That's something God has given you. And sometimes you got to fight for it. Not always physically, but you got to fight for it. And the cost is high sometimes. Sometimes the cost is high. And it's a great scene because it really challenges York, where he actually goes and he goes before God and he prays and he says, God, what am I to do? And God says, unto Caesar's what is Caesar's, unto God what is God's. And he comes to find out that he actually saved lives when he went. Became a war hero. It's an amazing story. Highly decorated. Okay. Sometimes the cost is high to keep what God has given us and blessed us with. Is a nation willing to relinquish its sovereignty? Or is it willing to come to under the submission and the sovereignty of God as we once were? That's where where we once were. This is where when Shelley sung the song and "Oh Lord, please light the fire that once burned bright and clean."
Amen.
I love that. I love that because to me, I'm a romantic, and I thank God. Oh Lord, please light the fire that once burned bright in this country, that was clean. Replace the lamp of my first love that burns with holy fear. Let this nation. I just love that because to me this gives me hope. These are words that actually God has allowed to be on paper that give us hope. Please light the fire once again.
Amen.
Time and time again, He alone keeps this nation safe and has protected us time and time again and has kept us safe from enemies, from the spiritual realm, foreign and domestic, throughout our history. This is, I want to read something really quick. And this is 2 oaths that one by the president and one by a person who desires to be a citizen of our country. The president says, "I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States." What else does it say after that? Anyone? 4 words.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Amen.
So help me God. George Washington, who led armies, who could have been prideful and stuff like that. So help me God. So help me God. Because he's declaring to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, which makes us sovereign as a nation. I want you to understand that. So help me God. His dependence is on God to keep this nation sovereign. I want you to understand that. The second one. This is for a person who desires to become a citizen, and this is the oath they take. I hereby declare an oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, any state, or sovereignty of which I have heretofore been subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will bear arms on behalf of the United States when required by law, that I will perform non-combative service in the armed forces of the United States when required by law, that I will perform the work of national importance under civilian direction when required by law, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. 4 words. So help me God. So help me God. I've heard, and it's just not just a few. There's so many people who take this oath who really do understand. They appreciate what this means, the sovereignty that they have been blessed in being a part of. And I think we as citizens from birth do not remember or do not hold to that or do not understand what it means. Our nation today is as we all know, is under attack. Our enemy is using everything possible. One thing I want to warn you is the term globalism. So the enemy, our adversary, desires to take away our sovereignty as a nation, which takes away our history, which takes away our self-governing that God has given us as a nation. I want you to understand that. The enemy's fight is to take away our sovereignty as a nation because it came from God. He wants to destroy our legacy, our history. Globalism means there's no sovereignty, no borders, no self-governing. there's a group of people who govern the people over here, they're not accountable to you. I mean, they do whatever they want. Whatever they see fit, whatever they think is right, whatever is perverse. If they think if it's going to unite the people, it's all good, because it's going to unite the people because they love their sin. That was what was mentioned, right? Because what Shelley said, they love the sin. So they're not under the authority and sovereignty of God. Excuse me. No sovereignty, no borders, no self-governing, no self-determination. There's a word that was used recently, and people do not understand what it means. Nationalist. The true definition of nationalism is what all presidents have done, is to be president and taking the oath of office for a nation. That's what I want you to understand. To execute the office of president and will, the best of my ability, preserve and protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. That's nationalism. Nationalism has been distorted by white supremacists, because that is not a true, it's a lie. It's not true nationalism. True nationalism, meaning, this is what it means. A true meaning is a person's strong identity with their nation. And vigorously supports its interests. Its needs come first. That's what a president does. He takes the oath of office. That's his only desire. That's who he's serving. It's not another country, but his own people. There's enemies that want to destroy that. And we know who our enemy is. But we need to know his weapons. I would have to say almost all presidents, again, are nationalists. You have to as a leader. There's a responsibility that goes along with it. A nation dependent upon God, no matter how powerful it believes it is, our history shows when it bends its knee before Almighty God, and when it repents, God is faithful to forgive and to help.
Amen. Amen.
So I want you to understand that. I want you to really understand that. A nation dependent upon God, no matter how powerful it is, believes it is. Which I love the history that I can recall when presidents do that. Lincoln. Eisenhower. The list is long. Roosevelt. During going through the Second World War, I've shared it with Debbie. It's like he's on the radio and he's just saying, I want to pray for our nation. And he's praying to God to help him and help this nation to overcome the enemy, which was Germany. The enemy was great. And he's praying.
Amen. On
bended knee as best as he could. So I'm going to talk about the sovereignty a little bit through Scripture, not through my own interpretation of God. But the sovereignty of God that governs the affairs of man. Okay, I'm going to use, and I'm thankful to God, I'm going to use what God has given you, Debbie, Psalm 91. So God, this is the sovereignty of God. He that dwells, anybody who wants to go there, I'll wait for you. Psalm 91. Tell me when you're there, please. Amen. He that dwells in the secret place of the Most High. Think about our country, because that's what it used to do. Shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty, the sovereignty of God. I will say to the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover you with His feathers, and under His wings shall you trust. His truth shall be your shield and buckler. His truth. Amen. I love that. Mm-hmm. You shall not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flies by day. Mm-hmm. So now I want you to ponder what presidents have done. who took their knee, spiritually or even physically, in the privacy of the Oval Office or whatever. That's what I pray for Trump, President Trump. He gets on bended knee.
Amen.
When he's a prideful man. You know, he's confident, I should say. He's a confident man. And he should say things he doesn't have a lot of. I hope there might be monitored. But I'm supportive in the sense of what he's trying to accomplish. But I pray that God gives him wisdom in how to articulate and not to stick a stick into a cage and just cause that animal to get angry, which is, you know what. So, you know, it's just not to provoke.
Right.
You know, it's taking that higher ground, just like what I've said it before. What Reagan did. Reagan. There's just for the sake of just hear my heart. Reagan used to have a lot of enemies in the press. Sam Donaldson was a famous ABC reporter, and he was there, and he was always on the president. He was always antagonizing. He was poking the president and stuff like that. And he goes, now, one of the things that Sam Donaldson stood up and says, you know, Mr. Reagan, you said this and this and this. Don't you think you were responsible for that? And he goes, no, because for so many years I was a Democrat. and so what he meant was a lot of the problems that he inherited are from the Democrats and stuff like that. And Sam Donaldson, everybody busted up. Everybody just like, everybody's like, we're gonna get him. It's like, but Reagan had wit. Reagan knew how to diffuse things. I mean, he took a higher place. I mean, he had great wisdom, and he had great heart for comedy and for storytelling and stuff like that, which put people back on their heels a lot, because Trump puts people back on their heels one way, and Reagan used to do it in a gentle way because he took the higher ground. So let's see here. 6. Nor for the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor for the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right side, or right hand, but it shall not come near to you. Only with your eyes shall you behold and see the reward of the wicked, because you have made the Lord, which is your refuge and my refuge, even the Most High, your habitation. Okay, that's as being a sovereign nation, we need to be I pray that we become again a moral people. Amen. Who fear God. There shall no evil befall you, neither shall any plague come near your dwelling. So all atheists, all non-believers, all haters of God, no evil shall befall you, neither shall any plague come near you, near your dwelling, because you have made the Lord, Amen. Which is my refuge, even the Most High, your habitation. I just pray that God will allow that to happen. For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. They shall bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the adder, and your lion, and the young lion, and the dragon shall you trample under feet, because he has set his love upon me. Therefore I will deliver him. I will set him on high, because he has known my name. He shall call upon me. I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. Let's go back to Psalm 33. Sovereignty of God over a nation. And the only reason that nation is sovereign is because God ordains it. I'm going to go to the beginning of 33. Rejoice in the Lord, O you righteous, for praise is comely for the upright. Praise the Lord with harp, sing to him with psaltery and an instrument of 10 strings. Sing to him a new song. Play skillfully with a loud voice. For the word of the Lord is right, and his word are done in truth. And all his works are done in truth. He loves righteousness and judgment. The earth is full of the goodness of the Lord. By the word of the Lord were the heavens made. Sovereignty of God. He's over everything. and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth. He gathers the waters of the sea together as a heap. He lays up the depth in storehouses. Let all the earth, let all the nations fear the Lord. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him, because he is sovereign.
Amen.
For he spoke and it was done. He commanded and it stood fast. Something that we need to understand. He spoke. He allowed this nation to be formed the way it was. We were given a chance. We were given an opportunity to live under the sovereignty of God. And by that, we would be a sovereign nation. And that can be taken away. 10. The Lord brings the counsel of the heathen to nothing. He makes the devices of the people of none effect. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the thoughts of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, and the people whom he has chosen for his own inheritance. Whether America understands it or believes it,
That's right.
we are such a nation. It's not that we are to be prideful about it, but as some presidents did, they humbled themselves and went to their knees. Because it's not something that is to be prideful and to be arrogant about, and to dominate and to dictate. But we've gotten away from this. A few more verses. Let's go to Daniel 4. Daniel 4:34. 4:34. And at the end of the days of Nebuchadnezzar, at the end of the days, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me, and I blessed the Most High. I praised and honored him that lives forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. And all the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing, and he does according to his will in the army of heaven and among the inhabitants of the earth. And none can stay his hand or say to him, "What do you?" So God is sovereign.
Amen.
He answers to no one.
Amen.
And as a nation, when a president or a leader humbles himself and says, "I submit unto the sovereignty of God," the nation is blessed.
Amen.
Jeremiah 10. Jeremiah 10. 6-7. For as much as there is none like to you, O Lord, you are great, and your name is great in might. Who would not fear you, O King of nations? For to you does it appertain. For as much as among all the wise men of the nations, and in all the kingdoms, there is none like to you. The acknowledgement of the sovereignty and of the glory and the mighty of who God is. Nehemiah 9. Nehemiah 9. Six through 9. So Nehemiah 9, 6-9. You, even you, are Lord alone. You have made heaven, the heaven of heavens, with all their hosts, the earth, and all things that are therein, the seas, and all that are therein. And you preserve them all, and the host of heaven worships you. You are the Lord, the God. You are the Lord, the God, who did choose Abram, and brought him forth out of Ur of the Chaldees, and gave him the name of Abraham. So 6, you, even you, are the Lord alone. You have made heaven and the heavens of heavens with all their hosts, and the earth and all the things that are therein, the seas and all that is therein, and you preserve them all. So I want you to understand that. Whatever God has ordained, whatever God has orchestrated, He's over it.
Amen.
And this, to me, it speaks on exactly that in regards to our nation. He has done it. He preserves them all for a season. First Chronicles. It's going back to the cross. That's what's the only thing that's going to heal this nation is going back to the cross, going back to what the scriptures say, and what God has blessed us with our history, our heritage as a nation. Again, I echo this a lot, but I don't really apologize for it because it's something that God has given it to us plainly. It's something to hold on to. Just another morsel. I don't know. The scripture is the big thing,
Amen.
but there's the morsels are our heritage and stuff like that God gives us, and it's not like. I mean, that's a bad way of describing it, but it's just this is something to hold you over, to kind of to encourage you, because that He's at work in a nation, work in a people. That's just probably a wrong way of describing it. I apologize. 1 Chronicles 20. Six through 9. And yet again there was war. I hope this is the right one. No, it's not. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's 2 Chronicles. Sorry. 26 through 9. And said, O Lord, God of our fathers, are not you God in heaven? And rule not you over the kingdoms of the heathen? And in your hand is there not power and might, so that none is able to withstand you? Are not you our God, who did drive out the inhabitants of this land before your people Israel, and gave it to the seed of Abraham, your friend forever? And they dwelt therein, and have built you a sanctuary therein for your name's sake. If when evil comes upon us, as a sword, judgment, or pestilence, or famine, we stand before this house and in your presence, for your name is in this house, and cry to you in our affliction, then you will hear and help.
Amen.
Proof of that is what, if we call to remembrance our history as a nation, when presidents took the knee and cried to help, and they didn't depend upon the might of a nation, of what it's capable of doing, but it says, God, we need your help.
Amen.
When the oath of office is taken, so help me God. It's not of a person's reliance upon themselves, or of self-sovereignty or self-reliance upon itself as a nation. Its dependence must be upon God. One more thing that I want to say. We are starting to see the fracturing of our sovereignty. We are. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it, because we're starting to see it. But we have something that we have God that holds it back. Ryan has talked about Europe and how it's given itself over because it's given up its sovereignty. It's giving up its sovereignty because it's given it over to a group of people, the EU, who governs, who dictates to the nations what they could do and can't do. Immigration is one. I think this is just, my heart feels, is like Britain has been allowed to pull back from this alliance by the grace of God, by a sliver, by the skin of their teeth. They were able to pull back. And there's such a fight to get it back in. But because of the foundation that was laid within England, right? Right? That's what I believe. That's evidence that God is sovereign. God is still merciful. And it goes with us as a nation, where I've heard it said, and I wish I had pulled it up and I wrote it down, where it talks about historians talking about America's uniqueness as a nation and how the exceptionalism of America, that's the word, the exceptionalism of America was acknowledged back in the 1700s, 1800s, when it was a baby of a nation, because its dependence was upon God.
Amen.
So what I want you to understand, like everybody's fretting about the immigration coming from the South and stuff like that, and how the border, the left, the progressives, the Democrats want no borders, right, because they have a hidden agenda, and it's out in the open now. And there's the agenda is to take away the sovereignty of our nation, not to answer to itself. It's no longer we the people, but of a few. That's what socialism is. The will of a few dictate to the many. Yeah. So that's what I want you to understand as a people. We have forgotten this. America has forgotten this. That it's submitting to the will of a few. It's going that way. And by the grace of God, 2016, America pulled back. Amen. And said, no, we're not going there. We're not going there. And only God, in His infinite wisdom, that is beyond anything of me. I'm like, there's like a speck of dirt right there, and God's up here. And I'm like, He took President Trump. Because He knew what it took. He's got his flaws. We all got our flaws. Right? But He's saying, no, we're no longer somebody's, yeah. We're no longer just going to be kicked around. We're no longer Santa Claus, and giving people money and they hate us and stuff like that. So enough of that. I pray that you understand what I'm getting at with this message. And I just want to close in prayer. Father God, thank you so much, Lord, for you, Lord. Your word is sovereign. Your word is above all. Lord, your word is what we cling to. And Lord, I pray that this nation would cling to your word, would come back to its first love. Yes. That's another thing. When I opened in prayer, I thank you, Lord, for the privilege of saying that. And then Shelley, through what she sung, Lord, is come back to your first love. Yes. Lord, that's what you want. And what you shared through Carrie, Lord, your heart cried is to come back to me. And Lord, Lord, what you're pleading with your people, with your church. And Lord, I just pray, Lord, that you would allow your church to continue to be bold and be able to speak out. Thank you, Lord, for everyone here, Lord, that is really standing in the gap, really crying out and proclaiming the gospel to the lost, Lord. I just thank you for each and every one, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for their submissiveness unto you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, they're on bended knee. Lord, that it's not of themselves. It's not of some selfish or prideful to make a name of themselves or some organization, but Lord, for your glory. Amen. It is for your glory. It is for your glory. Because you are sovereign above all, above the church and above this nation. And Lord, I pray that this church and all churches, Lord, would acknowledge the sovereignty of God. Amen. That your word is sovereign. That your word supersedes the Methodist doctrine. That all doctrines that are a fallacy, that rage against you, Lord, they don't know what they're up against, Lord. I'm thinking about when those people were banging on the Supreme Court doors. Is a representation of people in their foolishness and in their arrogance, saying, we don't want you. We don't want your justice. We don't want your love. We don't desire to know you. God, it's just like, it just takes us back to what we read in your word, in your holy word. So Lord, I just pray, Lord, that we just are able, that I was able to convey what you wanted me to convey, Lord. And I just pray that you allow us to understand what it is, what you're trying to get at, and what we are as a people. So Lord, I just pray that we would just ponder and meditate upon it, that you would give us more insight. And Lord, that you would touch this nation again, that it would fall in love with its first love.
Amen.
We thank you and praise you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.